Hey everybody at the Friendship Donations Network and anyone else who happens to come across this video. We have a surplus of bread, dinner rolls, Kaiser rolls, all things white carbs. And I'm making a video today to show you how to make life hack bread pudding. This is the bread pudding recipe for people who don't have the time to devote to a bread pudding recipe. There's going to be 0 bowls involved in this. And there's multitudes of options for bread pudding. I'm going to make a dairy-free chocolate walnut bread pudding, but you could do caramel apple. You could do a savory bread pudding and use jalapenos, like that, and cheddar cheese and salsa. You could do a gingerbread spice bread pudding with candied ginger and your Christmas spices of allspice and nutmeg and cinnamon. The sky's the limit. You can also Google a recipe, but I don't like measuring things, so I just do the dump and go method, which I will be using tonight. So apologies if you really want to have a recipe. I can send you a full-on recipe if you like that too, but this is just the very easiest life hack version. So you take your bread. Any kind of bread will work. Literally any kind, and unless you're like really picky and don't love caraway and rye or something. But these are just, standard white rolls. These are a little bit more tough. It doesn't matter what size you cut them in. The smaller, the better. The smaller means that more liquid is going to soak up into their bread interstitial spaces and get ooey gooey. So that was one kind of the rolls, a little harder to cut up. This is a fluffier roll. This is going to be a little bit nicer. If I can get my hands on old challah bread, that is my favorite for bread pudding. So you just cut. Sometimes if I am feeling extra lazy or want to get my hands busy, I'll just rip, right? Dismantle bread until you have roughly the volume that you think would roughly fit in a pan. Any pan, whatever. I'm feeding friends, so here's my pan. Now this part is where a little bit of intuition comes in. You're going to mix the liquid ingredients right in the pan. Now some of you might be concerned that this is going to cause some sticking problems in the pan once you try to make a serving. Well, if you're anything like me, all you want to do is stand there over the warm stove and scrape the bottom of the pan, those little pieces that don't want to come out. So I love doing that, so no grease for my pan because I don't care. But if you care, mix it in a separate bowl. So I poured in some dairy-free silk soy milk. You could use oat milk, you could use almond milk, you could use cashew milk, anything liquid. Milk spelled with a Y, M-Y-L-K. And here's some local eggs going in here. And as I said, this is the intuitive part. So it's like, okay, do I want this to be fairly rich and eggy? Then add some more eggs. I think with the size of this pan, 3 will be very lovely and plenty. So mix. Froth. Mixing in the pan, which is, could make a mess if I wasn't completely careful. I'm going to add a little bit of oil, although if you're feeling like the bread and the other stuff is going to be guilty enough, you don't necessarily need oil. I've definitely made this without oil. It's fine. And here's my cocoa powder. I love the bulk section. Sprinkle this in. This is going to be a bit more of a fuss to mix in, but that's all right because it'll be a little powdery. So there's that. And here's some sugar. And you might be asking, how much sugar? Well, trial and error, I guess. You can also just sort of visualize, how much sugar is going into this whole pan, what's a serving going to look like out of this pan. I don't want to make this too sweet, so I'm putting in, that's about a half cup. I'm visualizing about a half cup in my mind. That brown sugar is going to take a little bit. What else do I want to put in here? I want a little bit of nutmeg, just because nutmeg is a super warming, delicious spice. I add nutmeg to macaroni and cheese when I make that, believe it or not. Here's a little cinnamon. And again, we're going chocolate, but I think these spices add a really interesting sort of overtone to the chocolate. And that's all I want to add at this point. A little salt and vanilla. Oops. A little salt and vanilla will be great too. But mix, mix, mix. If you have no problems eating raw eggs, this is where you get to taste how you're doing. So I'm just going to pick up a little piece here and see how we're doing. All right, I got the salt. Salt's there. It's decently sweet. I'd say my mix is good, but if for some reason you taste it and you're like, oh, this is not nearly sweet enough, you take your sugar, you sprinkle more on. That's easy. If it's too sweet, then you add some more bread and milk and it balances out. So I'm gonna have to be mixing this for a while, and I can see that there's some white hunks of bread, ta-da, that did not get moist enough, because the point of bread pudding is to be luxurious and moist and squishy. So I'm just going to pour a little milk over top, and that milk is going to mix with the chocolate and the sugar and everything that's already in there. The counter argument is that I could have just measured everything, but how do I know if I like a recipe or not, unless I've tried it already? But I do know that I will like the balance of the sweet and the chocolate and everything in this, because it's sort of an iterative process. And I'm going to go do something else for 10 minutes while this soaks, because that's super important for all of the moist goodness to soak up into that dry bread. So about 10 minutes have gone by, indicated by the fact that I'm wearing this hat. I preheat the oven to about 350, and everything has soaked and it's looking really good. When in doubt, add more milk. Basically, the bread will soak it up even more in the oven. The oven is a really great neutralizer of all things. So here's some dark chocolate chips. I'm going to sprinkle these on. These are going to add little magical sugar bits, and some walnuts. I'm very, very excited about this. I'll show you. Here we are. So bread, walnuts, chocolate chips, our non-dairy milk, and super simple, and zero anything to wash except for the pan when we're done eating it. All right, about 20 minutes has passed, and I'm wearing my coming out of the oven hat. And so I failed to share with you all how long to put it in for. So I usually put it in for 20 minutes, and I'll check it after 20 minutes. I never trust a timer because some people like things a little bit softer. You know when it's done when it's no longer shiny, but instead like a matte finish. So here we go. Another trick is to put a bowl or a pan of water in the oven, which helps keep things a little moist. Here we are. This is an awkward angle, but so we got our roasted walnuts. We've got the matte finished bread. The chips are ooey gooey. All right, with my favorite reuse center spatula, we're going to cut ourselves a slice. Here we are. And it came out pretty well. There's a big empty spot. You can even see the bottom of the pan. Here we go. I wish I could share this with everybody, but I'm pretty excited about it. You can see that the bread is all nice and chocolate covered on the inside. It got soaked up. The walnuts are golden and the chocolate chips are gooey, so I consider this a success.